So hey guys, and welcome to another video. And as you can see here today, I've got a couple of G-Shocks, a couple of CASIO G-Shocks that I wanted to show you. These are both my G-Shocks. I've had the black one on the left there for just over 10 years now, and this one here on the right, this lovely, really sort of subtle yellow one, outrageous yellow, really, isn't it? I bought this one actually last Christmas, just after Christmas actually, in January of 2023. I bought this one. So what I wanted to do really just today, and this will just be a fairly short video, unlike some of my other videos which have kind of exploded into nearly 20 minutes plus. I just wanted to keep this one fairly short, guys, and specifically I wanted to talk about my views on G-Shock and answer a question. And it's a question that comes up fairly regularly, I think, for most of us watch dudes, is when you're counting the amount of watches that you've got in a collection. And obviously, it's in our interests to, especially when we're trying to share this number, potentially with your wife or your better half, you want to keep that number as low as possible, don't you? So do we count a G-Shock as part of a collection of watches? And it's a bit of a difficult question to answer, really, isn't it? Because G-Shocks are so different in many ways to the rest of the watches that we might collect, that it's very easy to justify not adding this as part of your collection. So I think a lot of you guys out there, and I've probably been one of them, have said, well, I've got let's say I've got 10 watches, but actually you might have 14 when you include the G-Shocks that you've got in your collection. So, yeah, I think we've all been there, haven't we? Now, I wanted to talk. I've got a view on this, and I'll share that right at the end. But very quickly, I wanted to talk about my view on G-Shocks generally. So, just a quick overview of this watch, very very briefly. This, as you can see, is a fairly standard, straightforward G-Shock. There's nothing particularly impressive about it. It's a fairly standard model. It's running on the 5611 movement, and I bought this from the local mall. Like I say, back in January of this year, of 2023. It was on sale. I think it was 20% off or 25% off. It cost me a couple of $100, which I think in US, if you want to do that conversion, is what's that going to be? About 120 US dollars. So a very, very minimal amount of money, particularly when you're talking about, the watch hobby. 120 US is nothing really, is it? For a watch anyway. So I bought it on a whim, really. I wasn't expecting to buy it. I wasn't going out specifically to buy it, but I thought, well, look, I like the color. I like yellow. It kind of doesn't match my style, I suppose. I do like orange watches a great deal, and they didn't have any with an orange strap, and I liked this one. It was very summery, I thought, very playful. I tend to go kayaking quite a lot, so I go for recreational paddling out here, just off the coast of Auckland in New Zealand, and I thought, well, this would be a nice watch to wear occasionally for a paddle. So there you go. That was my justification for buying it. I wore it for a few days, on and off. And as I think what happens with a lot of watches like this is you sort of get a bit tired of it after a very short period of time. And I put it down, and now I only use it very, very occasionally. So, and I think a lot of us could say that about our G-Shocks, is particularly if you're into some of the other mechanical watches. Your G-Shocks get, like, I'm going to be brutal, they get boring very quickly, don't they? The excitement and the adrenaline buzz of getting a new G-Shock is fairly short, I think. So, but that's okay, because ultimately, if you're buying a G-Shock as a tool watch, then you're not buying it for the adrenaline buzz, and you're certainly not buying it to impress your friends, are you? So all the more reason to get one of these, and if it's doing the job that you want it to do, then all very well. So I just wanted to very quickly give you what I consider to be the really good things about a G-Shock, and also there are some negatives. And actually, for me, I'll be honest with you guys, I'm not a G-Shock fanboy. In fact, very far from it. I'm really not crazy about G-Shock at all, and I'll tell you why. But I'll also start with the pros. So I'll give you a pros and cons of G-Shocks generally. So the pros are, they're cheap. Number one, it's a cheap watch. It's cheap to get into. It's cheap to put a wristband on your wrist that tells you the time. For 100, let's say 120 US, nice and easy. And I know you can get some for even cheaper than that. So that's definitely an advantage in terms of the monetary value of the watch, and the cost to get into a G-Shock is very, very minuscule. I'd say it's a fun watch. I mean, look at the the bright yellow band on this. It's a fun watch. It's playful. It's definitely a summer watch. You can wear it down the beach. It's a fantastic beta watch. You don't get much better really as a beta watch than a G-SHOCK, because even if something does go wrong with it, I mean, guys, for the money that you've shelled out for it, you're really not going to be all that upset even if something does go wrong. So that's an advantage. Is it's fun. Another advantage is that unlike most luxury watch brands, you're not going to get your head kicked in and robbed for this watch, are you? If you're walking down the street on a Friday night, in a less than beautiful part of town, and and people are checking you out to see what watch you've got on, and they see you wearing one of these, they're going to probably, rather than rob you, they're going to have sympathy for you, aren't they? So you're never going to get yourself into a bad situation, with somebody wanting to remove this watch from your wrist. And also, I will say as an advantage, I think there is a perception of coolness that goes with G-SHOCK. It's a funky brand. They've done a good job, I think, of marketing themselves. They've got some nice designs, and I think there's a Kool-Aid aspect, I think, isn't there, to owning a G-SHOCK. So they're the good things about G-SHOCKs, guys. The bad things. So I'm going to go on to these because these are the reasons why I can't get heavily into the G-SHOCK rabbit hole. One is, these things are incredibly complicated to set the time, to set the date. Even when I bought this watch and I wanted to set it to local time, it was I had to actually go and download an instruction manual, and I'm going to say it took me about half an hour or so, and which would be fine if you're doing that once. But the other issue is every time you want to make a change to this watch, you've forgotten how to do it. You've forgotten which combination of A, B, C and D buttons you have to press and in what order, and you have to catch them whilst they're flashing, because if you don't catch them whilst they're flashing and you press the button a little bit too late, you end up changing something else. So I've got myself in a right pickle with this watch a few times actually when I've wanted to change one of the settings, and I find that quite frustrating. So although you think a watch like this is going to be an absolute doddle to set and to adjust, it really isn't. I don't think I should have to download an instruction manual if I wanted to change the time, for example. And the buttons are fiddly. There's a button here which I think you can change. I can't remember now. You can change something with this button. I think you can change it from the date to the seconds display down there. The light's up here. There's a fairly, I mean, you wouldn't see the light here anyway, but if I press that button, then it illuminates this area here to tell me the digital time. And the other thing is that that is a tiny backlight, guys. So if I was wearing this watch, and let's say I was wearing this watch through the night, the lume on these hands is not very good at all. It runs out very quickly. So if I wanted to, at 4 o'clock in the morning, when the lume charge on these hands is completely gone, I wanted to see what the time was, I've got to pick the watch up and press that little button there, and this area will illuminate. So it's nowhere near as good, guys, as a nice big chunky juicy lume pot on an Omega. Or even this vintage Tag Heuer that I'm wearing here. Even the lume on this, although the lume on this is very old now and is definitely run down, it's running its course, I can still see the lume on this a heck of a lot better than I can on these hands at night. So they're the disadvantages of this watch. Is it's just a fiddly, awkward thing. That the day, there's a day indicator here, massive arrow that points to a tiny little letter. So and I'll be honest with you guys, unless you've got perfect reading vision, you cannot see those letters. So that's another downside as well. They're trying to offer you, with this watch, a lot of nice technical extras, but they're just really difficult, I find. And I know that there are some watches and some colorways where you'll be able to see some of this a lot clearer than you can on this yellow and black. But frankly, guys, let's be honest. I mean, you don't buy a G-SHOCK to tell you what day of the week it is anyway, I know. But if you're going to have that functionality on a watch, I think it ought to be a little bit more legible than it is, particularly as it's marketing itself as a go anywhere, do anything beta watch. Now I've got a really significant quibble, guys, with the G-SHOCK, and I know some of you out there are going to tell me that I can fix this problem with no issues at all. But here's my 10-year-old. This is my 10-year-old G-SHOCK. Now, I really like this watch. I've got an emotional attachment to this watch. I bought it 10 years ago. It's been on a lot of kayaking trips with me over the years. I've never been in a pool with it or anything like that. I've never had the back off of it. And yeah, look, I've just worn it as you would a G-SHOCK. But as you can see, guys, it's packed up. It's just ceased to display, which is a really massive disappointment. And it did that all of a sudden about 6 months ago. It just suddenly stopped. And like I say, it's about 10 years old. Just suddenly stopped. Really disappointed. It's obviously solar powered, and you know, it's never been out of light, as it were. So I don't think that it's just because it's been in a dark spot and, you know, and the battery's run out. I just think I don't know what's wrong with it, but you know, this watch cost me, you know, again, around $100 US, 165 New Zealand, I think this was. So what am I going to do, guys? Am I going to send it in for repair, or am I just going to buy a new one? And that's the thing about these watches. You know, look, I don't doubt that I could get this fixed, and I can get the back off of this and get whatever it is, you know, that's faulty replaced. But I kind of expect more, guys. I don't expect, you know, a very, very simple digital solar powered watch to pack up after 10 years. And like I say, I find that very, very disappointing. One of the other things about this watch and these watches, I mean, I've got a sentimental attachment to this because I've had it so long. But one thing I'll say, you know, and again, it's an intangible. I don't have any emotional connection with this watch at all. And that's the thing, you know, when you buy a G-SHOCK, I don't think you're buying it for the same reasons that you buy, let's say, you know, even a Seiko automatic, or potentially even a Timex or something that's designed more as a fashion piece as well. You know, they kind of appeal aesthetically to your emotional side, don't they? Watches like that, and even neo-vintage watches like this Tag. I mean, I've got a very strong kind of emotional connection to this watch, which, you know, these watches, as pretty as it is and as colourful it is, it's also very, very sterile emotionally. You know, there's nothing intangible about it. Everything about this watch is tangible. So anyway, guys, look, I know I sound like I'm having a bit of a beat up on G-SHOCK, and maybe I am. I'm very disappointed that this watch packed up, because this is all the reasons why I buy a G-SHOCK, and it is because this sort of thing doesn't happen to me. I shouldn't have to worry about it suddenly stopping. And the other side of it is, you know, the lack of legibility with some of the other functions on the watch. And to answer the question, the initial question that I was asking, which was, does it count in your collection? Well, yes, it does. I mean, this is my opinion, guys. It's still a watch. It still tells the time, apart from this one, which has decided to pack up. It still tells the time. It still goes around your wrist. It's still called a wristwatch. And therefore, I'm sorry to say, guys, but my view is, you know, when your wife or somebody in your family says to you, how many watches have you got in your collection now, by the way? My view is you can't leave the G-SHOCKs out. I'm sorry, because I know that that's really awkward, but I think a G-SHOCK does definitely count in the collection, albeit it's more of a colourful, playful wristband than a wristwatch, in my opinion. So there you go, guys. I was hoping that would be a slightly quicker video than it was, but look, I know there's a lot of G-SHOCK fans out there, and I'm hoping actually somebody might be able to tell me what I can do with this, whether I can fix it myself or does it have to be sent away. I'm sure that I'm not the first person to have one of these just suddenly decide to stop working. I would like to get this fixed, more because, you know, like I say, I've had it long enough now that it's kind of got a some sentimental value to me. So let me know what you think in the comments, guys. Like and subscribe if you like the video and the content, and I look forward to catching you in the next video. Thanks, guys. Bye.